Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast at Maono Center for Transformation. My name is Melody Wanjiro. I'm always your moderator for the podcast, and today I'm glad because we have someone very special for this podcast, someone who is an author who have been doing so great, as you can see, Hope made a way. So today we'll be talking about her book. And before hata niingie ndani, I would like her to introduce herself so that we get to know her. But before introduce herself, always remember to comment on our socials, to like and share. And always recommend someone that you feel tunafaa kuongea na yeye on our podcast. Because we believe each story always counts. Karibu sana, Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Melody. My name is Lucy Wanjiko Jenga. I work at Positive Young Women Voices as the executive director, and as you have said, I'm also the author. I also have speaking engagements where I speak at the global level, also at the regional level, but my heart really is for Dandora, and I'm so excited that you invited me here today.
You're so much welcomed. Before we go back to your book, can you tell us about Positive Young Women Voices? Because today I'm dealing with the ED of Positive Young Women Voices. I would like to know a little bit about Positive Young Women Voices.
Sure. So Positive Young Women Voices is a community-based organization here in Dandora. We are located at Dandora Phase 1. Positive Young Women Voices came about for the many reasons that we see in this community. There are different challenges that young women and girls face being raised in this community, and we didn't just want to keep talking about it. So my friends and I came together and decided, let us do something, for a change. Let us at least be counted as people who stood for something other than just, came and left the community as it was. So that was the genesis of the organization. We started with mentorship for adolescent girls in community high schools, where all of us had gone to these community high schools, and we would give sanitary towels and mentorship talks every month. And this has continued up until now, and we started that in 2017. We also now saw that there are more young women coming to us and saying they are facing violence in their relationships, in the community, even with people who they should be feeling safe with in the community. They are facing violence from these people. So we started, from the bottom. What is violence? Because you find some people don't even know what violence looks like. Why is it something we should care about? So we decided would sensitize the community, the young women themselves, the young men who are their partners, and the key stakeholders on what violence against women and girls is and what it is not, what you should do if it happens, and all that. And we have grown from strength to strength, and I think by now we have reached more than 3,000 people.
Wow. Yeah. That's so awesome, and I'm glad to say it again. Allow me to go to your book, Hope Made a Way. As I told you earlier, we're doing a series of GBV, and I want us to focus the GBV types on your book. So allow me to go back.
For sure.
From the drowning part, where you're talking about the drowning part, and I get to see about, if you're okay with it, I get to see about the GBV that you faced while you were young. You can tell us about that.
Sure. It's never easy for a survivor of violence to come out and say, this has happened to me. Mostly it's the shame that you feel, thinking that you had something to do with the violence that happened, feeling that you have something to do with the violence that happened. And I think that is why the stories of survivors are very powerful, because they remind us this is not me, this is not my fault. I can speak, I can say something, and a change can happen. So when I was 8 years old, I was in this school. So I've lived in most of the informal settlements or slum areas in Nairobi. So I was in school in Lunga Lunga. That's where we were living. I was in school there. a sort of a community school. It was not a government school. It was a community school. And I can say I was really happy being in this school. It was where I learned how to read. It's where I learned how to speak in Kiswahili, because I only knew Kikuyu since I was coming from Ushago or Shags. And I really enjoyed being in this environment where I was getting to come, like meeting yourself for the first time. And for me to be able to get to that place, I had to do tuition, call them tuition. Now I know they call them remedial classes, but we used to call them tuition. So I would stay with a few other kids or students that did not know how to read and write and all that, as we were taken through that. So because at some point my parents moved from Lunga Lunga to Isili. And I was forced to stay because the term had not come to an end before they could think of the transfer and all that. So I was living with my uncle, so I would have to wait for him to come from work, which I think he was coming from work around 6, and then he would pass by the school and pick me. So I was the only one who was left with this teacher. The teacher was a principal, an old man. I remember he had this one tooth, like goka. And this is the person who had taught me things I didn't know about life. So I was feeling very safe in his presence. Until this day, he told me, he put a gunia on the floor and told me to lie down on the gunia. And before I knew it, he was on top of me. And it was a very hard thing. Writing that chapter was very hard for me to write. I think at some point I even had to go through therapy. But I knew not talking about it meant that other girls in this community and other communities would never live to talk about such encounters or such experiences because they feel like they have to be ashamed or feel like it's their fault in one or the other. So that's why it was very important for me to highlight this. The violence that we think of, we only think of in relationships, probably a man and a woman, but we never think of school. Are you taking your child to a safe school? Is it a safe school? What are the teachers doing to the children? What are the teachers telling the children even? We never even have had those discussions after school. You're asked, how was your day? Because that goes a long way. You can tell by the way the child is behaving how the day was when they're telling you how the day went. So I really hope with that chapter that parents can just initiate conversations with their children, so that if the place you think is a safe place for your child is really safe or not.
That's really deep. And as we continue, there is a place that also I came across whereby you were almost about to end your life. Would we classify that also as a type of GBV because it happened that somehow you were neglected and you felt like enough is enough, all I want is to end myself before you saw the airplane, and then you decided I also want to travel, so why am I ending my life?
Very interesting question to ask for sure. I think we now call it unalivening yourself. Unalive yourself. I think it is in one way or the other self-harm, and self-harm falls under violence. And yes, it is, though it's not, I think, classified just of yet, but I think it's violence to yourself. It's getting to a point where you do not see yourself anymore, to the extent you think, I don't want to be in this place anymore, or I can't handle what is happening in life anymore. No, on the other, it is to self. But when you look at the circumstance that led me to a point where I wanted to enliven myself, I think it was emotional violence that was happening. I was hoping, I was hoping to feel safe at home. I think I'm this person who my love languages are gifts and words of affirmation. So I feel really good when people tell me nice things. And I think it's for every child, leave alone love language or whatever. Every child wants to be told, you know, you're going to make it. You are a special person. You're meaningful. You're a winner. You know, such things that keep a person going. Even as simple as telling your child, I love you. You know, these are things I never had. And I would watch the TV and I'm thinking, how come these kids are told, you know, like most of the movies there now are for white kids, and these white kids are always told, I love you, I love you. You know, you're told words of affirmation of who and what you can do. So I was not feeling that being at home. And I think it's the same case for many of the young people in my generation, probably the other generations, and probably for my parents as well. It's very hard for you to replicate what you've never seen. If anything, it looks kind of weird. It's not we don't do that here. We don't do that here. So for me, it was that emotional violence, and also just being told things that I didn't know where to take. When you're told, now I have another daughter, it doesn't matter what you do. I really don't care about you. Now I have another daughter. For you, I don't consider you my daughter. I have another daughter. That for me was really hard. I think it put a wedge or a knife into that relationship between my mother, between me and my siblings. It did, even if in that moment it didn't seem so. It did put a knife into that relationship, and it has been hard up to date. Even though I've gone to therapy, you find that each member of our family has their own tendency that do not get to a place where there's a point of merging. And I believe it's really because of the emotional violence, or the emotional violence. I think that's what we call it. Or verbal abuse, you know. That when you think you're telling a person, that doesn't do a lot of harm. Sini kusema tu, sini kuongea tu, sijamchapa, ziko wapi alama. And I also find that even if it's not kids, even in relationships, most relationships where violence begins as verbal abuse. Before you even get to the slapping and what, this person has tried to downgrade you, or has told you things that you sit back and wonder, why would this person tell me this? So yeah, I think it's one of the worst of violences, and sadly, you don't have a mark to show other than emotional marks.
So that was also something I remember while I was reading Hope Made a Way. At some point, I would just like, wow, and then sip some water because I feel like I'm the one. You know, you're speaking to us by this book. And at times, whenever you sink into something, you feel like, yeah, she's really speaking to me, you know. So at any point where you were at your childhood, did you experience some physical abuse?
Oh yes, but in our communities we don't look at it as physical abuse. Ni mtoto anachapwa, ni spare the rod, spoil the child. It's in the Bible and all those things that people say. So being beaten, I was really beaten. I remember, I don't know, it's because you know, sometimes I sit and wonder, is it because I was such a bad kid, or what really happened? Because my mom would beat me with mwiko tatu. Like moja ikiisha, amekuchapa hadi imevunjika imeisha. Anachukua ingine inaisha. Chukua ingine inaisha. I would wonder, did I kill someone, or what is it that it's so bad that you'd need to beat a child that much, you know? And I was always very afraid of physical violence, even up to now. I've never fought with anyone. I've always been scared. I still have those reflexes of being hit. So even if you raised your hand in a way, you'd see me ducking. It has nothing to do with, it's not that I think you will hit me. It's those reflexes I still have. And that was hard. I think the way we have been taught to raise children, we really need sort of a revamp or lessons on how to raise children without is it alternating? No, without resolving to beat a child. Because, for me, that was hard. Even in school, I remember there was these teachers who would really beat you. Like, I was not good at GXC, now they call it, I think, social studies. And there was a time the GXC teacher really beat us. And you beat a child, you wonder, what is the issue here? Is there something else that has nothing to do with school? To the point I think something in my head just snapped, and I started running around the school like a mad person, just screaming. They had to hold me and take me to the deputy's office because it looked like something had just gone wrong. But it's the physical violence for me, I think. I don't know why we were ever told that is a way of disciplining anyone, a child, an adult, in relationships. We in our trainings you hear the young men, and they're very young, saying mwanamke lazima umpige. Ukude mwadando usipompiga ataanza kuona ni kama wewe si mwanaume. I don't know where that started and how it has gone on for so long to seem like it's true. You have to beat someone, or you have that right to even beat someone who is an adult, someone you've met as an adult. Atindo mwoke kwa line. Which line is this? So I did experience physical violence, and I don't know if there's a point one ever recovers. I think you just know how to manage. But as I told you, the reflexes are still there. I can just find myself ducking. Like my husband now asks me, so why are you ducking? And he's just trying probably to go and hug you, and it was unexpected. I didn't see. I'll just find myself ducking. But it has nothing to do with him because he's not a violent person. But it's the way that I've been raised, so
So there's also a point where you mention your favorite teacher, Mr. Oliver, right? And this Mr. Oliver was torn between, should I discipline you and should I not? So how was it? Because in your book you identify him as your favorite teacher because I guess he would understand you. And
he was my second favorite. We didn't stay long in the school since he came in. Before him, there was Mrs. Mokaya. I don't remember Mrs. Mokaya ever beating me any day in my life. Even if she did, I don't really remember. Like, there was that, that respect. Even if this is a child, I respect you, I see you. And Mr. Oliver would beat me sometimes because my lateness was notorious. And I think it has gone on up to this day. I tend to be late even when I don't want to be late, even when I wake up very early. So he would beat me sometimes, but at least you could tell he's beating you because that's a trend he has brought about in school. Not because he wants to beat you. He can understand your situation, but he has to, he has set the precedence that lazima mtu akichelewa anapigwa ama ukifanya hivyo unapigwa. So he was at least understanding when he wanted to understand.
Okay. So far so good. I want us now to go from your childhood to the adulthood, whereby I also identify some instances of GBV while you were married. And I guess, was it type of physical violence? Maybe you can touch on that.
So okay, sorry, sometimes I go off. In the first relationship I ever had was right out of high school. So I'd gotten from, had gone through high school without anyone, without a boyfriend or anything. I really wanted to concentrate on, getting to a place where I know who I am as a person and understanding where I'm going. That was very important to me, to just know there is better for me. And if I could help it, if it was me, I would do my best to get to my best self. And I got into this relationship when I was, I think, 18. And it's because we were in close proximity. He was a neighbor, and I was very sad then. I don't know what, I was very sad then because of school issues. You're in school, you're out of school. You can just tell that your parents are really struggling to take you to school. And I really wanted to finish my Form 4. I wanted that by the time I'm leaving home, I have a certificate, a Form 4 certificate at least. And I remember he would find me on the balcony, and he would be, actually it was in phase 1, we just passed there and we were coming here. And he would find me there, looking sad, feeling sad, and he would be concerned. And when you are denied of love and kind words, even when a person is lying, you can't tell the difference. So when he showed concern, that was very new for me. I was not used to people being concerned about me. I would take really long baths. I'll just go sit in the bathroom, sit in the basin, and just stay even for hours. And it being a shared bathroom, other people want to also use the bathroom. So he would come and knock and ask, "Are you okay? Are you still there?" So very, very minute things that would make me or push me towards wanting more of this. Where would it go to? So we got into a relationship, and that's when I even started having sex. I was still a virgin by then, and because of that, he would tell me I'm beautiful. He was also the first person who said he loves me. He thinks the world of me. There are things he said that I was never told. I didn't even know. There was someone somewhere at some point who told me I was ugly, and I thought in my head really I was ugly. So he kind of changed that perception. And he would ask me, "So why don't you model? You look really good as a model." So that's why I even joined Miss Dimes and Miss Koch and won, because he had given me that confidence. So by the time violence was coming in, I was already so head over heels that I didn't see it. And it was very funny. It started when we were staying together. So he would be like, he had to follow me everywhere. Like he would follow me everywhere. I just didn't know that was one way or the other, trying to see who you're talking to or who you're engaging with. I didn't know. I just thought, oh, he likes or loves my company and wants to be close to me. And then he started the verbal abuse, when in Malaya, that being very easily thrown. Like, why would you call someone you love Malaya? What exactly does that mean? And then it would also trigger what I would hear from home. So I would feel really helpless where, like, it's between a rock and a hard place. Ni wapi sasa safe? Where is their safety? And then after now, the verbal violence, then it grew now to physical violence, where at one point I was slapped and he took his belt and really rained that belt on me. Because apparently someone texted. And like he would even have my phone. Like, those are just things that don't happen. And also it was, before even physical, there was economic violence, where he would say, "I can't go to work." He's the one who's providing, and he wasn't providing anything really, because so like he had a lot of money. But if anyone who was not him was looking for work, would give me work, he would be like, "Hii kazi hawendi." Kwanza, if it was a man who had looked for that job, I would not go to do that job. And even after I went, he would be calling all the time. It's as if I'm doing something else other than working. So you can just see. Now I think young people call it red flags. You can always see those things. It's just that you assume or you ignore these things, but they're always there. The signs are always there. Before it gets to physical, there are things kidogo kidogo tu zimekuwa initiated. Mtu aone, can you handle or not? Do you know what you want? Do you know who you are? So because I never spoke, became normal. I can say you can go to work or not. But if I spoke then, or just defied him and still went to work, then probably the relationship would have come to an end before getting to a point where there was physical violence. Yeah.
Thank you for taking us through your story in the instances in which you faced the physical violence, or rather the types of GBV. It's so sad that at times we get to keep it to ourselves. We don't speak, maybe because we fear for our lives, or maybe we fear that we're going to be judged by the community or so, right? As we wind up, I would like you to face that camera and maybe speak to a girl, to a teen mom, to whoever that is watching us, and tell them one or two things that they're supposed to get in terms of identifying the red flags and not taking action.
Yeah. If you are watching me from home or you're listening to me from home, mine would be to tell you that you don't have to stay. You don't have to be in an abusive relationship. You are worthy. You are valuable. You are special. You are important in this world. Do not give anyone that chance of making you think otherwise or feel otherwise, because they are lying to you. Everything you think you are, the goodness that you feel you have in you is true. If a person is violent in any way, if they're denying you an earning to make an income, if they're denying you friends because they feel that this friend is not good for you, is not good for your relationship, ask yourself why. Ask yourself if there's in 10 years from now, will you feel better that you didn't go to work? Will you feel better that you stopped talking to that friend of yours? 10 years from now, will you feel better that you were hit and you stayed? Or you are verbally abused and you stayed? If a person keeps telling you, wewe hakuna kitu naweza niambia, wewe, you're nothing, you can never become anything, you can't live without me, all those things that you get to hear. Are they building you or are they putting you down? If by any chance you're feeling you're not being built, don't be afraid to leave. There's always better. I tell young women that you might think this is the only person who can understand you, the only person who sees you, but there's way better out here. There are way better partners and husbands and boyfriends who understand you and respect you for who you are. But you have to first respect yourself, and respecting yourself is walking away from things that do not build you. So go ahead and walk out. And if you're not in one, don't get into one. If you see the red flags, believe them. They always say when a person shows you who they are, believe them. Hi, so this book, Hope Made a Way, is a memoir. It takes you through my story, my life story, from when I was a child to up until now. And the reason why I wrote this book was because I knew there was a girl somewhere, a young woman somewhere, especially in the slum areas or rural areas, who feels like there's no hope, wondering if they'll ever achieve their dreams, wondering if they'll ever get to where they see themselves. You know who you are as a person and what you can give to the world. But there are so many inequalities. There's violence, there's poverty, there's especially poverty that you are fighting every day just to probably get the basic needs, and you do not see an end in sight. I wrote this book to remind you that there is an end, and there's a good end, and you will achieve all you think you want, and you'll achieve all you put effort in achieving. I was that girl who became a teen mom. I was that girl who almost dropped out of school. I was that girl who really fought to even stay in school and finish. I was that girl who got married to a person who was violent and who she didn't want to get married to in the first place because of the dreams and goals that she had. And losing my son and so many other things that came into play. But I did get to overcome all this, and you can too. So that's the whole idea behind this book, and I really hope that it inspires you to live to be your best self, live to your full potential.
So if you haven't gotten your copy of Hope Made a Way, I would suggest that you get yourself a copy at Amazon, and also we're going to leave the information of where you can get it on our video. So make sure that you watch and you get to follow that link and get your copy. And also at any bookshop, you'll be able to get yourself also a copy and be able to read about this book. I don't know if you haven't gotten yourself that copy. You're missing a lot. You're missing a lot. I don't know. Personally, I have read it like 2 times. Whenever you gave it to me, I had already done it as an ebook, and now the second time, una sync.
Oh,
you sync.
Thank you.
It's an awesome book. So, and also for us to get to talk to you and you get to see the work that you're doing, remember to follow us on our socials. That is on Facebook, that is Maono Africa Center for Transformation. On Twitter, at Maono Africa. On IG, Maono Africa. Any other socials, it's Maono Africa. Do not forget to follow us, like, comment, and share our work. We're always there for you to get that information that we are doing as a podcast. I've been your host, Nuria Bookstore. Till next time, kwaheri.